In the coming moments, you'll encounter the most taboo, mentally harrowing, and profoundly emancipating insights ever drawn from the abyss of human torment. This isn't a mere recounting of history. It's a surgical examination of the feminine essence performed not in a clinical setting but amid the icy inferno of the Soviet labor camps, where the merciless forces of famine, treachery, and solitude served as a corrosive solvent dissolving all layers of societal facade to expose the primal, unaltered essence of fidelity and disloyalty. The men who endured this apparatus of annihilation brought forth a hidden truth, a chillingly uniform blueprint of feminine conduct that shatters every romantic illusion we've been fed. This is the Solzhenitsyn enigma, and grasping it equips you with nothing short of intellectual and emotional fortification against the insidious erosion of contemporary bonds. For ages, thinkers have pondered the essence of women, affection, and allegiance from the security of wood-paneled libraries and sunlit Greek forums. They crafted sophisticated hypotheses, exquisite in their detachment, yet utterly ineffective when confronted with genuine, visceral life-or-death ordeals. Their arena was the intellect. Ours, the one we're stepping into, was constructed by the NKVD. Its subjects were countless men doomed for a phrase, a glance, a quip, ripped from their loved ones, and fed into a grinder of frost, starvation, and hopelessness. And the key element in this nightmarish trial, the women they left behind. Their spouses, partners, mothers, the guardians of their legacies, the lifelines to their former existences. What these men unearthed through anguish so intense it defies description was a grim classification of the female mind under duress. They charted the precise outlines of contingent devotion and revealed the startling innate drives that can eclipse years of tenderness in an instant. This wisdom was bought with blood, frostbitten flesh, and shattered spirits. It is the supreme awakening, tempered not in online debates but in the tundra of Kolyma. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the master recorder of this torment, went beyond merely chronicling the regime's savagery in his epic tomes, especially the Gulag archipelago and One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, unyielding chronicle of this vast social inquiry. He captured the missives that never arrived, the dissolution decrees that did, the tales murmured on icy cots well after curfew. He supplied the evidence. Our role is to interpret it, to transcend the revulsion and dread, and distill the eternal, merciless axioms. This isn't rooted in hatred of women. It's about discerning patterns on an epic historical canvas. It's about comprehending the workings of the human spirit to avoid being caught off guard by them. The reward of this insight is a stark, unclouded liberation. It's the capacity to perceive reality as it truly unfolds, not as we desire it to. It's the cessation of innocent disillusionment and the dawn of authentic, self-reliant power. Let us journey to a particular instance, a vivid exemplar inscribed in the icy annals of the camps. Envision a man we'll name Yevgeny, a gifted young engineer from Leningrad. His offense was his very excellence, his potential to outshine a minor bureaucrat. One evening, the fateful knock, the seizure. His universe contracts to the confines of a dark police wagon. Sole solace, his sole link to his humanity, is the vision of his wife Anna. Her grin, the way she waved from their flat's window. He is interrogated, condemned to a decade of re-education through labor for spying. A ridiculous accusation, yet fatally binding. He endures weeks in a suffocating, filth-laden train carriage to an outpost in Vorkuta beyond the Arctic Circle. His life reduces to ration arithmetic. 500 grams of bread for meeting quotas in logging or coal extraction, 300 grams for shortfall. Men perish from a mere scratch, a sniffle, or just collapsing into the snow with no will to rise. For the initial year, Yevgeny persists on dual sustenance, bread and optimism. Optimism personified by Anna, he pens letters at every opportunity on scarce bits of paper. He empties his heart into them. He reminisces about their shared history, their prospects, his eternal devotion. He affirms his innocence. He vows resilience. He will come back. He yearns for a response, for proof that he still matters beyond the fences. Seasons elapse. Silence. His famine-weakened thoughts spawn nightmares. Maybe she's gone. Maybe she's incarcerated too. This dread is a toxin fiercer than the freeze. Then, after 14 months, correspondence arrives. Not the substantial, soulful bundle he envisioned. It's slender, bureaucratic, with shaking numb fingers. He rips it apart. It's not from Anna. It's from Leningrad's Soviet tribunal. It's a divorce notification, filed by her, citing his imprisonment and banishment. Enclosed is a brief personal message. Yevgeny, pardon me. This is unbearable. I must prioritize my own path now. Don't reach out. I've wed another. From Anna, the impact isn't sentimental. It's corporeal, like a kick to the ribs. Breath flees his chest. The already drab world turns utterly stark. His final bastion of defiance disintegrates to powder. That evening, he skips his bread allotment. He shares it. He gazes at the barracks roof. And the drive to resist, to withstand the intolerable, simply vanishes. He is slain not by a sentry's shot, but by scant words inked on paper. His form endures a few more months, an emptied husk, until a trivial pneumonia, which healthier souls repel, silently claims him. This narrative is far from singular. Solzhenitsyn chronicles legions of Yevgeny's. He observes, a prisoner's spouse faced an instant dilemma: disavow her husband or embrace her own downfall. And how many could muster such valor? 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000. This constitutes the inaugural principle of the Solzhenitsyn enigma. The likelihood of desertion is inversely linked to the societal and economic toll of steadfastness. Affection isn't boundless. It's a commodity. And when its worth crashes, most holdings are sold off. Why? Is it mere viciousness? Frailty? Solzhenitsyn and researchers examining this occurrence delve into something more primal, something rooted in biology and evolution. Their core evolutionary drive is endurance and sustenance for progeny. They are innately hypergamous, programmed to pursue the optimal supplier and guardian. A man's worth is inherently bound to his societal rank, his assets, his projection of vigor and stability. In a flash, the regime divested Yevgeny of all these attributes. He ceased being a skilled engineer, a sustainer, a shield. He became a zek, an inmate, a null entity, a societal outcast, a reproductive cul-de-sac. Aligning with him invited devastation for her and any offspring. Her affection, however, sincere at first, hinged on his standing. When that standing was obliterated, the affection for the overwhelming majority couldn't persist. The forsaking wasn't always spiteful. It was frequently a stark, practical maneuver of evolutionary safeguarding. She wasn't turning on him. She was preserving herself. Grasping this icy biological equation is the initial stride toward neutralizing the ache of disloyalty. You're not rejected for your essence. You're jettisoned for your standing, or lack thereof, the arena of subsistence. Yet the tale doesn't conclude with the Yevgenys. There existed another, far scarcer type of woman, the outlier that validates the norm. Solzhenitsyn termed them Zek wives or Decemberist wives, evoking the aristocratic ladies who trailed their banished spouses to Siberia following the abortive uprising of 1825. These women challenged the odds. They didn't just remain true, they waged war. They forsook their ease, professions, reputations. They relocated to squalid, distant settlements near the camps, merely to draw nearer. They devoted years queuing interminably to dispatch paltry care, bundles a handful of tubers, a sugar cube, a sausage sliver, that frequently spelled survival for their partners. They mastered red tape, relentlessly drafting petitions, hounding authorities, defying suppression. Their fidelity wasn't inert. It was a vehement, proactive insurgency. Reflect on the account of Natalia Rashadovskaya, Solzhenitsyn's initial spouse. Their bond was a volatile whirlwind that mirrored these motifs on a smaller scale. Post his 1945 detention, she didn't promptly end the marriage. A university scholar with a bright future, she faced colossal strain. Still, she exchanged letters, dispatched what she could. But as the years stretched without resolution, the burden eroded her determination. In 1949, yielding to the unyielding edicts of authority and peers, she divorced him. It was a crushing strike for Solzhenitsyn amid the camps. Yet, in a remarkable twist on the typical storyline, Upon his 1953 release to internal exile, she tracked him down, and they reunited in matrimony in 1957. Her devotion, though it wavered, wasn't wholly eradicated. Their ultimate separation in later years stemmed from another sort of clash. Between the man reborn from the void as a tempered visionary and the woman craving an ordinary existence with a youthful partner, she recalled. But her journey illustrates the intricate, turbulent, and occasionally paradoxical workings of these tenets. Even outliers are riddled with trials. What distinguished an Natalia from an Anna? What sorcery of temperament forged a Decemberist wife? Solzhenitsyn proposes it was a blend of extraordinary inner resilience, a profound, near-sacred view of love that surpassed material realities, and frequently a particular zeal or mental autonomy that rendered them impervious to communal coercion. They perceived their man not through society's lens as a felon, a foe, but as his authentic self. Their hypergamy targeted not societal prestige, but a profound, indomitable essence they discerned in him, a trait the Gulag couldn't obliterate. This is the second tenet of the Solzhenitsyn enigma. Absolute fidelity is a rarity in history, attributed to a tiny subset of women endowed with preordained traits of profound autonomy and doctrinal resilience. You can't anticipate it. You can only identify it, and, with profound appreciation, treasure it, should you ever be lucky enough to encounter it. Staking your emotional endurance on discovering such a woman is wagering against formidable, historically lopsided probabilities. This isn't relic of the past. The Gulag serves as the starkest, most intensified prism for a verity that functions daily in every urban center, in every bond surrounding you. The dynamics are merely gentler, more protracted, stealthier. A man forfeits employment. A man succumbs to melancholy. A man grapples with a malady that drains his vigor and energy. A man merely neglects to uphold composure, to guide, to embody a blueprint of potency and assurance. The gradual retreat of warmth, the erosion of esteem, the patronizing gazes, the eye care, but the spark is gone declaration. These are the refined contemporary parallels to Anna's dissolution notice. They represent the identical biological urge unfolding leisurely, absent the theatrical Siberian backdrop. The camp barriers have morphed into the understated bonds of societal norms and monetary ties, but the confinement persists. The disloyalty, when it strikes, feels equally conclusive, equally irrevocable. The Solzhenitsyn enigma furnishes the schema to anticipate it. It empowers you to assess your own partnership's state, not via wishful thinking, but with the detached scrutiny of a chronicler analyzing a persistent motif. It eliminates the unforeseen and thereby alleviates much of the torment. The torment yields to empowerment, the empowerment of prescience. This insight forms your initial shield, but it's merely the outset. For the inmates who got these communications, their response decided their fate. Yevgeny surrendered his ration and perished. Those who internalized this supreme disillusionment, this harshest of revelations, and harnessed it not as a toxin to self-destruct, but as kindling to temper themselves into something inconceivably resilient, something that could surpass the regime itself. How did they recast this paramount treachery into the bedrock of an impregnable manhood? The resolution to that query and the decisive phase in commanding the Solzhenitsyn enigma resides in the tempering. We shall reveal the endurer's outlook, how they redirected their faith from the fickle spirits of women to the impregnable bastion of their personal quest. We shall unveil the mental metamorphoses that transmuted casualties into resurrecting forces, and how you might deploy the identical, timeless, frigid sagacity to construct an existence of intent so formidable that disloyalty fades to a negligible murmur in the breeze. The individual who unsealed the slim bureaucratic missive and perused his own epitaph not in print, but in his partner's script stood at his life's pivotal crossroads. The jolt was a tectonic rupture that pulverized his reality's groundwork. In the glacial hush of the quarters encircled by specters of already fractured souls, he confronted a decision that encapsulated the totality of human wisdom distilled into one merciless choice. He could tread Yevgeny's route. He could permit the chill invading his core to pervade his frame, yield to the emptiness, and let his physique finalize what the treachery had initiated, or he could pursue an alternative. something vastly tougher, more counterintuitive, and ultimately more potent. He could embrace the intolerable, could ingest the disillusionment, not as venom, but as a pungent, fortifying elixir. He could peer into the chasm of this supreme verity that his being, his merit, his entitlement to devotion, now hinged on factors beyond his command. And rather than lament, he could acknowledge, could tell himself, thus is the nature of existence now. I comprehend. This instant of ratification wasn't capitulation. It marked the inaugural vital phase in the tempering. The Gulag's victors, the men who emerged from the enclosures years hence, their forms marred but their essences formidably whole, had all traversed this tempering. They unearthed a fearsome and emancipating reversal. The very mechanism crafted to eradicate them, the utter revocation of outward affirmation, of devotion, of prestige, could evolve into their supreme potency. When every support of their familiar realm was toppled, they were compelled to unearth a bedrock within. Solzhenitsyn dubbed this ascent. He described those who, divested of all, prioritized soul over flesh. It was solely on the decaying straw of confinement that I felt the initial stirrings of virtue within. Blessings upon you, prison, for your role in my journey. This isn't the submissive thanks of a defeated soul. It's the thunderous victory of one who has grasped the bedrock of male potency. That your worth cannot be bestowed, hence cannot be seized. It must be shaped in the solitary blaze of your agony and forged into being on the forge of your indomitable resolve. A woman's betrayal, regardless of its closeness, was unmasked as its true form, not a judgment on his spirit, but a mirror of her disposition and the retraction of a dependency he ought never to have leaned upon. This shift demanded a thorough, absolute redirection of faith. Faith is perilous. In the external realm, faith rested in correspondence, in a woman, in equitable systems, in eventual reconciliation. This outer faith was a tenuous filament that, when severed, induced emotional hemorrhage. The victors mastered extinguishing such faith. They conducted a psychic operation on themselves, excising the malignant craving for outside redemption. In its stead, they nurtured a sturdier, more enduring variant of faith inward, yielding faith rooted exclusively in their volition. Their faith wasn't in rescue, but in withstanding the ensuing instant, the following hour, the subsequent exertion. Their horizon contracted from an overwhelming decade-long term to a conquerable present trial of the next 5 minutes. This intense concentration on the now, on total mastery over one's immediate domain, is a potency accessible to any man in any locale. The fellow fretting over his spouse, subdued disdain at supper is hemorrhaging from a severed strand of external endorsement. The victor's perspective queries, can you govern her disdain? Negative. Can you govern your response? Unequivocally. Can you govern your subsequent deed, utterance, inhalation? Indisputably. This is the realm of the autonomous man. His faith isn't that the world will favor him, but that he will possess the fortitude for the world. Ponder the tale of Dmitri, a scholar detained for doctrinal nonconformity. The perfidy was a pinnacle of barbarity. For 2 days, Dmitri was immobilized. On the third, amid the punishing trek to the labor zone, an alignment occurred. He narrated to himself a reinterpretation of such magnitude it reshaped his existence. He reasoned, she hasn't forsaken me. She has unveiled her true self. The regime, by detaining me, didn't rob my life. It bestowed a boon. It disclosed the reality of my beloved before I committed to her, before progeny entered the picture. They rendered me a favor. This wasn't delusion. This was transmutation. He was converting betrayal's dross into enlightenments, or thereafter, Dmitri viewed his captivity not as penalty, but as a macabre academy. His discipline, humanity's core. His instructors, the wardens, the betrayers, the forsaken around him. His intended wasn't an antagonist in his saga. She was an essential curriculum segment. This knack for recasting calamity as instruction defines the indestructible psyche. The contemporary man facing infidelity, deception, or separation must enact identical transmutation. The inquiry isn't, why did she inflict this? But what lesson does this impart about existence and my own nature? This inner citadel was erected stone by stone by a rites of unyielding regimen. In a domain engineered to degrade men to beasts, the victors adhered to rites of civility that served no utilitarian end save affirming their autonomy. Solzhenitsyn depicted men who, after 12 hours of back-breaking toil in sub-zero gales, would painstakingly deluge their garments not for efficacy. The pests would return swiftly, but as an imposition of structure on disorder. They would declaim memorized verse, tackle intricate equations mentally, or instruct one another in tongues. This wasn't leisure. This was defiance. Each verse of Pushkin uttered on a frigid palate was a retort to the regime. It proclaimed, "You command my form, but my intellect is sovereign." This regimen of intentional, ostensibly feudal discipline is the proving ground for autonomy. The modern man must identify his counterpart. The routine exercise, despite exhaustion, the perusal of a challenging text over mindless browsing, the precise arrangement of one's bedding, these are your delousing ceremonies. They are modest daily affirmations that you rule your own being. They fortify the sinew of self-worth, ensuring that when outward esteem recedes, your base remains firm. The deepest shift, though, was in objective. The entrant to the camp bore an aim linked to his prior life, to be a devoted partner, a reliable supporter, to rejoin kin. This aim was quenched by Anna's letter. The victor discovered a fresh aim, one impervious to outer influences. His aim evolved into safeguarding his own wholeness, shielding his core identity. For some, it manifested as archival duty. They became ambulatory repositories, committing to memory identities, timelines, injustices, resolved to testify someday. Solzhenitsyn himself commenced drafting and retaining what would evolve into the Gulag archipelago while incarcerated, employing matchstick tallies to recall myriad textual lines. His aim transcended restoring an old life. It was to illuminate a verity for the globe. This endeavor was so immense, so vital, that it dwarfed his individual plight. His starvation, his chill, his betrayal, these were mere elements in a colossal, dire chronicle he was charged to recount. This is the paramount recast. Your suffering isn't personal, it's propellant for your quest. This is the relevance for you, the present-day man. Your quest cannot center on a woman. It cannot hinge on a partnership. These are elements that can be stripped away. Your quest must be something so intrinsically yours that its outcome rests solely on you. Erecting an enterprise, perfecting a skill, producing an artistic creation, attaining bodily evolution, safeguarding and nurturing your offspring. Observe, this diverges from spousal ties. A child's reliance is absolute. A spouse's is not. When your quest is anchored in such immutability, a woman's affections retreat becomes a diversion, a trivial annoyance, akin to an insect at the pane of the sanctuary you're erecting. Doesn't halt progress. She may opt to join your quest or abstain. Her allegiance is a valued bolster, but her perfidy isn't a foundational collapse. You are the designer. The quest is the plan. You are the core workforce. She's a vendor whose involvement you may continue or terminate, per her efficacy and congruence with the endeavor's aims. This appears detached. It is. It mirrors the Arctic's chill. It is also the sole method to erect enduring legacy. The men who surfaced from the camps were frequently alien to their former acquaintances. They were more subdued. Their gazes bore a profundity that unsettled others. They had witnessed the world's nadir, and thereby shed all dread of it. They fathomed the cost of all, particularly affection. They weren't devoid of capacity for love. Indeed, many attained a richer, more substantive aptitude for bonds, exactly because they harbored no delusions regarding it. Their love ceased being a desperate clutch. It became a mindful, purposeful offering from a stance of utter plenitude, sans anticipation of reciprocity as they required naught from the counterpart. Their love attained genuine liberty. This is the ultimate ironic boon of the Solzhenitsyn enigma. By embracing the bleakest reality of provisional allegiance, you emancipate yourself to forge ties unburdened by dependency's fetters. You can value a woman's devotion for its essence, lovely, ephemeral, provisional boon, without insisting it embody the impossible. You can revere the steadfastness of a Decemberist wife if encountered, yet you won't be ravaged by an Anna's abandonment. Your existence beyond the enclosures presents a distinct trial. Perils aren't firearms and deprivation, but ease and subdued despair. The treachery doesn't arrive in formal stationery. It manifests in digital notes, waning enthusiasm, legal summons. The tenets of endurance are unchanged. Construct your inner stronghold. Redirect your faith from her approval to your personal quest. Enforce regimen via everyday ceremonies. Recast agony as enlightenment. Your merit isn't dictated by her gaze. It is shaped through your deeds each day. The Gulag's endurers gazed into oblivion's core and discovered an inextinguishable radiance. You must replicate this in the plush obscurity of today's world. The enclosure isn't metallic. It's woven from anticipations, myths, the compulsion to be cherished by others beyond your devotion to your own quest. Sever it. Advance, your quest beckons.